the news tonight, an official of the U.S. State Department says the United States and Russia have made progress on proposals for a nationwide ceasefire in Syria, but technical details still need to be worked on. Hollywood star and UN Special Envoy Angelina Jolie says Jordan cannot bear the responsibility for Syrian refugees on its own and calls on the world to find a suitable solution to the Syria crisis. And Jordan's powerlifter Omar Qarada secures a silver medal for Jordan at the Paralympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, succeeding to lift 177 kilograms in the 49 kilogram weight category. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. The United Nations is hoping for a positive outcome on discussions between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry taking place in Geneva on a Syrian ceasefire plan. Kerry's meeting with Lavrov is their third in 2 weeks, in which they are discussing the cessation of hostilities agreement that would halt violence between rival forces and open humanitarian corridors. A statement later in the day by an official of the U.S. State Department said the two sides made progress on proposals for a nationwide ceasefire in Syria, but technical details still needed to be worked. Under the plan being discussed by Kerry and Lavrov, a cessation of hostilities agreement would halt violence between rival forces and open humanitarian corridors. UN Special Envoy for Syria Staffan de Mistura said he and Lavrov had discussed humanitarian access during a meeting together.
We did touch on the subject of humanitarian access, and we did discuss indeed what would be the role the UN should be playing if, as we all hope, there is a deal taking place today on the discussions between the two co-chairs. But I will not go in further details.
In Ankara, meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg welcomed Turkey's increased efforts to fight Daesh terrorists in Syria and said training local forces would be the key to battling the group. At a joint news conference with Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu, he also said NATO has increased its military presence in Turkey. Stoltenberg admitted the situation in Syria is very complex and very difficult, but that there is no alternative to just stay outside. We have to try to find a solution and also to fight Daesh in Syria, he said. Cavusoglu, for his part, said with a better strategy and with air support from coalition forces and assistance to local forces, Mosul and Raqqa operation would be successful and the two cities would be cleansed from the terrorists. 3 Turkish soldiers were reported killed and 1 soldier wounded today after an attack by Daesh terrorists on a tank in northern Syria. The Turkish army said in a statement that Turkish airstrikes earlier in the day hit and destroyed 4 buildings used by the terrorist group. In the fight against Daesh in Iraq, the Iraqi Air Forces said it killed 9 Daesh terrorists in a military operation north of Ramadi, located 110 kilometers west of Baghdad. A security source from Al-Anbar police said the operation targeted a gathering of Daesh terrorists, killing the 9, including some leaders. The Iraqi forces also destroyed a number of vehicles used by the group. Here at home, Hollywood star and UN Special Envoy Angelina Jolie called on world leaders to find a solution to the Syrian crisis during a visit to the Azraq refugee camp during a visit to the kingdom. Opened in 2014, Al-Azraq is the second largest Syrian refugee camp in the country with over 55,000 refugees. Jolie met with refugees and met with camp and UN officials who briefed her on the challenges faced by aid agencies. The actress said that Jordan, now hosting more than 1.4 million Syrians, cannot bear the responsibility of these refugees on its own.
Jordan has been warning for years that they would reach a point where they on their own could do no more. The world has known about the situation in the berm for months, but no solution has been put forward. This is symptomatic. Hey. This is symptomatic of a wider problem. My message to world leaders is that as they prepare to gather at the UN General Assembly in 10 days, to ask the fundamental question of what are the root causes of the Syria conflict and what will it take to end it. And please put that at the center of your discussions.
2 France and 3 women were arrested following the discovery of a car filled with gas cylinders near Paris's Notre-Dame Cathedral. The Interior Ministry issued a statement saying they were likely planning an imminent attack. Police raided an apartment in a nearby residential complex home to one of the suspects, and one of the women stabbed a police officer during the arrest before being shot and wounded. The car's discovery triggered a terrorism investigation and revived fears about further attacks in the country. EU finance ministers concluded a first day of informal talks that featured discussions on the consequences of Brexit, the migrant crisis and the security situation on the future of the Union. The ministers met with the heads of the main financial institutions as well as governors of the Union's central banks to discuss the economic impact of Britain's exit as well as migration and taxation. During the 2-day meeting in Bratislava, Slovakia, ministers will also discuss how to find a balance in the fight against tax evasion. The 28 EU countries apply a wide range of tax exemptions and deductions to companies, making it difficult for corporations operating in more than one country to calculate their tax base.
You represent Europe, and you're a very talented.
South Korean President Park Geun-hye headed a security meeting with top officials over North Korea's 5th nuclear test. He said the nuclear test was a challenge for the international community and called on world leaders to respond to the threat. After conducting its biggest test, Pyongyang said it has mastered the ability to mount a warhead on a ballistic missile. Here's more.
North Korea's state-run television proudly announced the country's 5th nuclear test. Earlier on Friday, a magnitude 5 tremor was recorded by meteorological agencies around the world. It came from close to a known North Korean nuclear test site. South Korea has issued harsh words in response. President Park Geun-hye says the North's leader, Kim Jong-un, has showed maniacal recklessness. Kim's regime conducted its last nuclear test in January. The South says the latest test emitted double the amount of energy. North Korea has repeatedly defied UN sanctions this year, launching numerous missiles, often towards Japan. More recently, they've been reaching Japan's air defense zone. Missiles are at the ready in front of the Defense Ministry in Tokyo, and people on the street say they are scared. It's just terrifying, this person says. Another said he felt his life was at risk. As South Korea holds emergency meetings, the North says it is now capable of mounting a nuclear warhead on a medium-range ballistic missile. That type of missile was tested on Monday, when world leaders were gathered in China for a G20 summit.
U.S. President Barack Obama condemned North Korea's nuclear test as a grave threat to regional security and international peace and said he would work with U.S. partners on new sanctions against Pyongyang. U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter, on a visit to Norway, also reaffirmed an ironclad commitment to defend South Korea and condemned the North Korean test as a direct challenge to the entire international community. House Republicans and Democrats put aside their differences to honor the thousands of lives lost during the 9/11 attacks in the United States 15 years ago. House Speaker Paul Ryan and Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi led the September 11 remembrance ceremony on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, joined by other members of Congress. On September 11, 2001, 4 passenger airlines were hijacked by 19 al-Qaeda members, which crashed into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York. The third plane crashed into the Pentagon in Virginia. The fourth plane, initially headed to Washington, went down in a large field near Pennsylvania after its passengers tried to overcome the hijackers.
Remember the ongoing struggles of the thousands of heroes who years later are stalked by devastating illnesses from their exposure to ground zero. By some accounts,
that makes it our generation's burden. We lived through that terrible day, and we will never forget that terrible day. Today, though, we are not here to relive that tragedy. We are here to remember it and to honor its memory. None of us would ever choose to go through that day again, but all of us must choose what it is we take away from it.
And the world's most expensive rough diamond was unveiled in a Paris exhibition by Swiss jewelry maker De Grignano. The 813-carat unpolished diamond was bought for $68 million. It is of top color and has the potential to yield the most incredible, flawless diamond that has ever been manufactured in history, according to International Director for Nemesis Diamond trading firm Nicholas Pollack.
I saw the constellation and I was totally thrilled. Actually, I got even scared because a lot of people, they ask me question, what you're going to do with this amazing diamond? Honestly, I keep talking to that stone since a couple of weeks, trying to have a feedback from her. I call her because she's my princess. And just to suggest me what kind of clothes she would like to receive. And so far, I don't have any answer.
Back here at home, 3 weeks to the day since Taekwondo fighter Ahmed Abu Ghosh won gold for Jordan at the Olympic Games, Omar Karada has secured a silver medal for Jordan at the Paralympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. The powerlifter Karada lifted an incredible 177 kilogram in the 49 kilogram weight category to secure silver behind Kong Ly Van of Vietnam, who took gold with a lift of 181 kilogram. Bronze went to Hungary's Nador Tonkel. For the second straight year, Serena Williams saw her bid for a record 7th U.S. Open title halted in the semifinal with a 6-2, 7-6 loss to Karolina Pliskova that also ended the America's long reign as world number 1. After 186 consecutive weeks as world number 1, Williams will relinquish the ranking to Germany's Angelique Kerber, who bet Caroline Wozniacki 6-4, 6-3 in the second semifinal. Australian Open champion Kerber clinched victory with a backhand that actually landed just beyond the baseline, but went unchallenged by former number 1 Wozniacki of Denmark. Janine Grasmeyer broke the world record for the free immersion diving, sinking down to 92 meters below surface in the Caribbean. The previous record of 91 meters was held by Russian Natalia Molchanova, who disappeared while making a dive in the Mediterranean last year. Grasmeyer pulled herself down to the record depths on the waiting line, but was unaided by flippers and stayed underwater for 3 minutes and 46 seconds. And finally, it will remain pleasant tonight in most regions with northwesterly light winds. Tomorrow, hot conditions prevail across the country with temperatures reaching a high of 35 in the capital. Winds will be northwesterly moderate. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect hot day tomorrow with northerly moderate winds and choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. An official of the U.S. State Department says the United States and Russia have made progress on proposals for a nationwide ceasefire in Syria, but technical details still need to be worked out. Hollywood star and UN Special Envoy Angelina Jolie says Jordan could not bear the responsibility for Syrian refugees on its own and calls on the world to find a sustainable solution to the Syria crisis. And Jordan's powerlifter Hamad Qarada secures a silver medal for Jordan at the Paralympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, succeeding to lift 177 kilograms in the 49 weight category. And with this we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching and have a good night.